You know what's worse than being forgotten by your family? Being remembered, just enough to pour the drinks. It was my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. A backyard banquet, rented fairy lights, and a playlist that screamed. We peaked in the 80s. Everyone was there. Cousins, in-laws, even that creepy neighbor who still calls me kiddo, despite me being 33 and paying my own health insurance. And me? I was in the corner refilling sangria pitchers like some unpaid intern at a party I didn't RSVP to. My name's David. Black sheep by blood, doormat by default. And for most of my life, I've played the role of the helper. You know. David, could you grab more ice? Or, David, take the group photo, you're good with phones. God forbid anyone asked me how my life is going. So when my parents called everyone together for a toast, I expected another round of saccharine reminiscing and awkward laughter. But what came next was something else. Mom stood, glass raised, pearls perfectly matched to her Botox. Before we wrap up this beautiful night, we have a surprise. Dad chimed in. We're taking the whole family to Hawaii next week. A second celebration. Just us and the people who've made our lives special. Cue gasps. Cheers. Someone screamed. Aloha, baby. And me? I blinked. Waited. Maybe they just forgot to tell me earlier. No big deal. So I asked, genuinely confused. What time is the departure? Dad didn't even blink. You don't know because you're not part of us. Silence. My spine turned to ice. Then he added casually, as if he wasn't detonating a bomb under my ribcage. You can stay behind. Watch the kids. Someone's got to be useful. Useful. Like a lawnmower. Or a backup generator. The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it was enough. A cousin chuckled into her wine. My uncle whispered something behind his hand. My sister, the family's golden child, snorted and said, Classic David. Always late to the memo. And in that moment, surrounded by twinkling lights and champagne flutes and the lingering scent of shrimp cocktail, something in me cracked. Not loudly. Not in a blaze of fury or a dramatic exit. Just a quiet snap. Like a branch under too much weight. I didn't argue. Didn't cry. Didn't beg. I just set down the drink tray, turned around, and walked out the front door. No one stopped me. No one asked where I was going. Because I was not part of them. Remember? Good. Because I was about to become something they'd never see coming. You ever drive at night without a destination? That was me, an hour after the party. Just me, my clunky Toyota Corolla, and a playlist I didn't remember queuing up, mostly sad indie songs that sounded like they'd been written by people with dads who actually showed up to baseball games. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't hurt, I was. Deeply. But I'd run out of tears for these people years ago. You can only water dead plants for so long before you realize they're just plastic. Instead, I pulled into a 24-hour diner, sat in a booth under flickering fluorescent lights, and ordered pancakes I didn't eat. My phone buzzed once, a text from Sophie, my older sister and the only one in that entire genetic circus who ever treated me like a human. It said, Hey, I didn't know. I'm sorry. Call me? I didn't. Not yet. I was still trying to process how my father, a man who once asked me to unclog his toilet on Christmas morning, had just told a crowd of relatives that I wasn't part of them. I left the diner when the waitress started sweeping near my booth like she was trying to exorcise me out of there. I went home, packed a duffel bag, and stared at my bedroom for a long time. It wasn't much, a mattress on the floor, a desk that doubled as a dinner table, and a closet full of clothes no one ever complimented. But it had been my space. My tiny, tragic fortress. Now, it was a tomb. I stuffed in essentials, clothes, toiletries, my sketchbook, and a camera I hadn't touched in years. Then I walked out, left a note on the fridge that said, Don't worry. I'll be useful somewhere else. I hit the road at sunrise. No goodbye. No forwarding address. Not even a heads up for Sophie. I figured if she really cared, she'd reach out again, but right now, I needed to disappear. I'd saved just enough from my barista job and the freelance gigs I'd quietly stacked over the years to float me for a couple of weeks. Not much, but just enough to escape the echo chamber of family drama and backyard champagne betrayals. The coastal city I chose wasn't glamorous. It wasn't even Google searchable without adding crime rate and is it safe to walk at night? But it was far. It had ocean air. And best of all, no one there knew me as the extra in my own family's life. The first room I found was listed as cozy loft above a bar. Cozy was generous. It was basically a repurposed storage closet with a view of 2 dumpsters and a drunk guy who played the harmonica at 3 a.m. But it was mine. It had a lock. And freedom. On my first night there, I laid on a creaky mattress, listening to the thumping bass from below, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Silence. No sibling demands. No dad stomping through the hallway demanding who left crumbs on the counter. No mom tapping on my door with the passive aggressiveness of a sitcom villain. Just me. I didn't sleep well. But I slept honestly. And that was enough. The next morning, I hit the streets in search of a job. Found a tiny cafe called Drip and Grind. It had chalkboard menus, pretentious espresso options, and a manager who looked like he hadn't smiled since Y2K. I asked if they were hiring. He looked me up and down and said, "Can you steam milk without frothing like a toddler sneezing into it?" I replied, "No promises, but I've got experience in disappointment." He hired me on the spot. And that's how my new life began. Not with a bang. Not with a TikTok-worthy montage. But with a barely working espresso machine and a barista apron that smelled like oat milk and regret. And you know what? It was perfect. Not because it was easy. But because, for the first time ever, every bruise was mine to earn. The cafe was a converted garage with personality. And by personality, I mean the espresso machine sounded like it had asthma, the pastries were probably smuggled in from a gas station, and the music alternated between lo-fi jazz and the sound of a goat screaming. But it paid. Barely. And it came with exactly one perk, Sheila. Sheila was the morning shift lead, queen of sarcasm, and owner of at least 6 nose rings. I lost count after week 2. She had hair like a paint spill and a laugh that made customers tip more, if only to make it stop. She also wore shirts with messages like, "Coffee is my coping mechanism," and "Don't talk to me until I'm dead inside." We got along instantly. "You knew?" she asked on my first day, eyeing my thrift store sneakers and deer-in-headlights expression. "Is it that obvious? Only because you look like a sad English major who wandered into the wrong timeline." Fair enough. Sheila didn't pry. She wasn't one of those people who prodded you for your "Why are you here?" sob story. She just showed me how to operate the register, how to swear at the espresso machine when it jammed, and how to handle regulars like Doubleshot Derek, who tipped in expired coupons and called everyone champ. Days blurred together. I woke up to the sound of bar fights below my room, worked 6-hour shifts pouring overpriced caffeine into mugs with misspelled names, and crashed in bed smelling like vanilla syrup and burnt hope. But weirdly, I was okay. More than okay. I wasn't performing for anyone. No. Smile for Aunt Linda. Routines. No. Pretend to be useful. Family obligations. Just me, a busted coffee grinder, and Sheila calling out, "David, can you please not steam the almond milk like it owes you money?" It was messy. It was real. And I hadn't felt this grounded in years. About 3 weeks in, I wandered into a pawn shop on my day off. I wasn't looking for anything, mostly killing time and hoping to avoid human interaction. But then I saw it, a beat-up Nikon camera sitting in a dusty display case like an orphan waiting to be adopted. I stared at it for a full 10 minutes. You see, back in the before times, aka high school, I used to be that kid with the camera. Yearbook club. School paper. I even won second place in a local photo contest once. Dad called it a Nice hobby. Then told me to get a real skill. Eventually, I stopped shooting altogether. But now, standing in that pawn shop with $20 to my name, and the urge to create something that wasn't a cappuccino? I bought it. It came with a scratched lens, a half-dead battery, and 0 instructions. But it was mine. I spent the next few days snapping shots of dockworkers, alley cats, rainy sidewalks, and neon diner signs glowing like ghosts. Nothing polished. Nothing curated. Just moments. At the cafe, Sheila noticed. "You're taking artsy photos now?" she asked, peering over my shoulder during a smoke break. I shrugged. "Helps me breathe." She lit a cigarette and exhaled slowly. "Better than therapy. Cheaper, too." Things were still rough. I ate too many instant noodles. My landlord kept forgetting to fix the heater. I wore the same 3 shirts in rotation like I was starring in my own personal sitcom called Barely Functional, The David Years. But I was living. Authentically. Unapologetically. And for once, no one was demanding I babysit, fetch chairs, or be the background character in their Hawaiian dream vacation. Then one evening, just as I was closing the cafe, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophie. "Hey. I found out what happened at the party. I'm so sorry. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a full 5 minutes. Part of me wanted to chuck the phone into the industrial coffee sink. Another part remembered that Sophie had always been different. She didn't laugh when Dad made jokes at my expense. She once snuck me extra cake after my birthday was, accidentally, forgotten during Daniel's graduation weekend. But still, I wasn't sure. So I did what any emotionally unavailable man with trust issues would do. I left her on read. The first photo that actually made me stop and stare? A broken fishing net tangled on a rusted dock post, the sun leaking through it like gold blood. I didn't know what made me snap that shot. But when I looked at it later, really looked, something stirred. Like a message from myself I didn't realize I'd sent. That photo started it. I began carrying the Nikon everywhere, even to work. Customers thought I was shooting for a local blog. One guy offered me $50 for a print of his dog. I laughed so hard I choked on my croissant. But I printed the dog picture anyway. First sale. Framed it on my wall like a diploma. Meanwhile, my camera roll grew, old fishermen with stories carved into their faces, toddlers feeding pigeons with crumbed fists, the way fog hugged the boardwalk at 6 a.m. I wasn't just documenting the city. I was peeling back its skin. And mine. Sheila started tagging along on photo walks. "This one makes me look artsy and unemployed," she'd say, striking ridiculous poses on cracked staircases. "You're unemployed." Exactly. Authentic branding. Evenings became quiet rituals: upload, edit, repeat. I was teaching myself Lightroom like my life depended on it. Maybe it did. When you've spent years being invisible, there's something addictive about capturing a world that actually sees you back. Then one Thursday night, I opened Instagram and saw a DM request from Sophie. Just her name on the screen made my chest tighten. I tapped it. "I've been following your photography page. Your work is beautiful, David. Really. I wish I had reached out sooner. Can we please talk? I miss you." It wasn't guilt-trippy. Not like Mom would have written. It sounded sincere. Which, of course, made it suspicious. Still, I replied. "Thanks. I'm figuring things out. Needed space." Her response came fast. "I understand. But when you're ready, I'm here." I stared at that message longer than I want to admit. Part of me wanted to delete it, block her, disappear again. But the other part, the small, fragile, human part, remembered how she once gave me her entire allowance to buy a used guitar, back when Dad told me instruments were noise machines for kids with delusions. So I left it there. Not ignored. Not accepted. Just pending. The very next day, my phone rang. Not Sophie. "Dad?" I let it go to voicemail because I've read enough horror novels to know when the devil starts calling, you don't pick up. Later, curiosity won. I hit play. David. It's your father. Just wanted to say, if you're done sulking, we could use a hand next week. Your aunt's watching the twins, but we'll need help with the other kids during the Hawaii trip. Be useful for once. Let me know. No, hey, how are you? No, we miss you. Just an RSVP to indentured servitude. I stared at the screen in disbelief. My brain short-circuited between fury and laughter. I wanted to call back and scream. But instead I texted 2 words. Not available. Nothing more. No explanations. No bridges built for them to burn. Later, as I closed the cafe that night, Sheila caught me staring into my phone like it had cursed my family. You okay? My dad wants me to babysit while they fly to Hawaii. She snorted. Wow. Is this like a spiritual sequel to Cinderella or just good old toxic family vibes? Somewhere between a soap opera and a psychiatric case study. She patted my shoulder with mock sympathy. You should charge them child support. Retroactively. For emotional labor. I laughed harder than I had in weeks. That night, I walked along the shoreline and found a washed-up boat hull. Someone had spray-painted across it. Not all who wander are lost. Some are just done being found. I took the photo. It would be the first one I ever submitted to a gallery. Because yeah, I was done being found. Dad called again 2 days later. This time I picked up. Not because I suddenly wanted reconciliation or closure or to hear his voice, which always sounded like a car engine trying not to die. No. I picked up because I was tired. Tired of pretending that silence was peace. Tired of letting their absence masquerade as permission. David. He said like he just finished mowing the lawn. I left a message. Did you get it? I did. Pause. Well? No. Another pause. Longer this time. No to all of it. He huffed. Like someone mildly inconvenienced by a slow barista. David, don't be difficult. We're leaving on Wednesday. Your cousins will have their hands full. It's not that big a deal. It is to me. You're making this personal. It is personal. I snapped. You told a room full of people that I wasn't part of this family. You made me the punchline of your retirement party in Hawaii reveal. So yeah? It's personal. He scoffed. It was a joke. People laughed. People laughed at me. You handed them the cue cards. Stop being so sensitive. There it was. The family mantra. Might as well get it printed on a pillow. You treat me like an employee. I said, voice shaking. Only worse, because at least employees get paid. You're overreacting. We've done so much for you over the years. Name one thing. That shut him up. I let the silence simmer before adding. You know what? Never mind. I'm not calling to debate my worth with someone who thinks babysitting is a love language. You think you're better than us now? No. I think I'm finally free from you. And then, with more grace than he ever showed me, I hung up. Blocked the number. Turned off my phone. Took a deep breath and let that moment marinate. The weird calm that comes after you throw a chair through a mental window you've stared at for years. That night, I posted a photo, one I took of the waves crashing against the pier, spray catching sunlight like glass shattering midair. The caption read, Sometimes peace doesn't come from being included. It comes from walking away. The next day, Sheila handed me a flyer. Gallery show, she said, sliding it across the counter like it was a classified document. Local photographers. Accepting submissions. I already entered you. You're welcome. I blinked. You what? You're good, David. Stop pretending you're not. I work at a cafe that spells Lily with 3 L's. And now you're gonna show the world you're more than that. Pick 5 shots. Submit by Friday. Or I'll do it for you. And trust me, I'll pick the ones where you look like a haunted pigeon. Despite my anxiety, I submitted the photos. 5 of them. The net on the dock. The spray-painted boat. A long exposure of a bus pulling away into fog. Sheila on the roof, flipping off the sky. And that one seagull I caught staring into the void like it had unpaid taxes. I didn't expect much. But 2 days later, an email popped up. Congratulations. Your work has been selected for the exhibit. Opening night 3 weeks. I stared at the screen like it had grown antlers. Sheila screamed. Customers applauded. My boss asked if it meant I was quitting. For the first time in my life, people noticed something I made. Not something I carried. Not something I fixed. Not someone else's party I silently cleaned up after. Me. Sophie messaged again that night. Said she saw the gallery announcement on Facebook. Said Mom was telling everyone she always knew David had an artistic soul. I replied simply, tell her she's not invited. From what I heard, thanks to Sophie's steady drip of screenshots and, you won't believe this, updates, the Hawaii trip turned into something between a reality show meltdown and a Craigslist babysitting horror story. Apparently the entire family didn't include a single soul actually qualified to manage 5 toddlers, 2 cranky teens, and 1 uncle who thinks sunscreen is a government conspiracy. My cousin Tanya left on day 2 because one of the kids threw a crab at her face. The golden child herself, my sister Jessica, reportedly had a full breakdown when her designer sandals got splashed by non-filtered ocean water. She stormed off and tried to book a solo resort suite. Dad refused. Said she was making it about herself. I know. I howled. But here's the best part. They called Sophie to ask if she'd fly out to help. She said no. Apparently, she was done being useful too. Back on the mainland, I was thriving in my broke but blessed phase. I picked up more shifts at the cafe, but they didn't feel like a burden anymore. I'd sneak in photo edits during slow hours, and Sheila would proudly introduce me to customers as our resident genius, gallery-bound, camera-wielding art goblin. And I started noticing something new. People were seeing me. The bar regulars waved when I passed. One dockworker-eyed photograph stopped me to say, "Hey man, you made me look cool in that picture. My kid printed it out for school." I laughed and told him he already was cool. I just caught it. I even started attending a local photography class on Wednesdays. Nothing formal, just a group of artsy weirdos sharing tips and roasting each other's shots. For the first time in forever, I had a crew. People who didn't know or care about my family drama. Just liked me for me. And the more I leaned into this new life, the more the ghosts stopped knocking. Except one. Sophie. She kept checking in, never pushy, always warm. Sent me photos of her dog in ridiculous Halloween costumes. Memes about youngest siblings being emotional support livestock. Updates about how Mom was still pretending I'd taken a sabbatical and would come around once he realizes what family means. Funny. I had realized what family means. Just not in the way they wanted. One night, after closing, I walked the boardwalk alone. The wind was cold but clean. I sat on a bench, pulled out my sketchbook, where I jotted quotes, captions, photo titles, and wrote, "Family isn't the ones who raise you. Sometimes it's the ones who help you stand up after they knock you down." I didn't realize Sheila had followed me until she plopped beside me with 2 hot cocos and said, "That's either deep or depressing." "Haven't decided." "It's both." She nodded. "Cool. Write it on your gallery wall." I blinked. "Wait, they're letting us do that?" "Yeah. Didn't you read the artist's packet? There's a space next to your work. You get to write a quote or a bio or whatever angsty monologue you want. Can I just draw a middle finger?" Too subtle. We sat there for a while, sipping cocoa, watching the ocean flex its muscles against the rocks like a teenager trying to impress a date. Then she asked, "Your family know about the show?" "Sort of. My dad probably thinks I'm working at a kiosk selling screen protectors." "You want them to come?" I thought about that. The short answer? Hell no. But the long answer? I want them to know about it. Not to show up. Just to realize they were wrong. Damn, she said, clinking her cup to mine. That's poetic. We should get matching tattoos. Let's start with matching gallery exhibits. We laughed. And in that moment, under a burnt orange sky, next to a girl who understood weirdness better than any blood relative ever had, I felt something unexpected. Not rage. Not spite. Peace. The cafe was slow that morning. Rain clung to the windows like nosy neighbors. I was mid-foam art attempt, a sad attempt at a leaf that looked more like a drowning squid, when the bell above the door jingled. I didn't look up right away. Not until I heard that voice. David. I froze. There he was. Dad. Standing in a hoodie that looked like it hadn't seen a washing machine since the Obama administration. Wet hair. Nervous smirk. Holding a plastic bag from a convenience store like it was a peace offering. Hi, he said, like this was normal. Like he hadn't told me I wasn't part of the family, and then tried to recruit me for unpaid child labor. Well, I said deadpan. Didn't know ghosts could shop. He chuckled awkwardly. Mind if we talk? Sheila looked up from the back, saw my expression, and immediately started wiping down an already clean counter with enough force to buff out trauma. She stayed within earshot, loyal like a pit bull in eyeliner. I nodded toward a side table. Dad sat like someone easing into a confession booth. I heard about the exhibit, he said. Did you? I replied. Did Mom's grapevine finally realize I exist again? I came to say I'm proud of you. You're not. I am. I know I haven't said it enough, but you haven't said it at all. I cut in. You think telling me I'm not part of the family, and then showing up because I'm on a flyer makes it okay? He sighed. I was under stress. The party, the planning. I leaned forward. Stop. You weren't stressed. You were smug. You wanted a show. You wanted everyone to see your perfect family, and I didn't fit the branding. So you made me the punchline. He sat back. For once speechless. I continued, softer now, but firm. You don't get to parachute in now that people think I'm worth something. You don't get to act like you always believed in me when you wouldn't even believe I deserved a seat at the table. I know I messed up, he said. I just don't want to lose you forever. I looked him square in the eyes. You already did. You just didn't notice until people started clapping. And then I stood. I've got work. There's the door. Use it. He hesitated, like maybe he thought there'd be a hug or a dramatic reconciliation. There wasn't. As he left, Sheila walked over, wiped the table where he'd been sitting. Want me to throw holy water or just bleach? Both. That night, I walked the pier alone, camera slung across my back, rain on my face. And I took a picture of the empty cafe window, a reflection of where I'd stood, saying the things I'd swallowed for decades. Sophie texted me later. She'd heard he showed up. Asked if I was okay. I wrote, yeah. I finally told him the truth. Didn't feel like revenge. Felt like release. She replied, I'm proud of you, David. For walking away. For choosing yourself. Then she added, I'll be there at the gallery. If that's okay. I stared at the message for a while, then typed. It's more than okay. It's good. The gallery was packed. Small space, high ceilings, enough pretentious buzzwords flying around to choke a philosophy major. I stood near the back with Sheila, pretending not to sweat through my thrifted blazer. You look like you're about to faint, she whispered. I'm debating it. Try not to do it near the free wine table. That's where I'm parked tonight. Laughter helped. The lights were warm. My section was near the back wall, 5 prints, neatly framed. My quote printed in bold under them. Sometimes peace doesn't come from being included. It comes from walking away. People read it. Paused. Then looked at the photos like they saw me, not just what I shot. Some asked questions. One lady offered to buy the boat picture, the one with the words, Not all who wander are lost. Sprayed across the hull. Sold it for $250. First real sale. It felt like someone handed me a second spine. Sophie showed up halfway through. She wore a green jacket I remembered from our childhood, patched now, vintage cool. Her smile was quiet. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "Thanks," I managed, throat tight. "I brought something." She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a Polaroid, me at age 10, holding that first camera I ever had. The one I bought with her saved-up allowance. "I kept it," she said, eyes shining. "Because even when they ignored you, I knew you were going to make something big." I hugged her. Really hugged her. No pain. Just warmth. "And Mom? Dad?" "Didn't show." "Good. They weren't invited. Not to this. Not anymore." Later that night, once the crowd thinned, I walked to the beach. Alone. Camera in hand, sea air thick with salt and memory. The waves crashed harder than usual, loud, reckless, unbothered. I set up my tripod. Framed the horizon. Clicked the shutter just as a massive wave collided with the rocks and exploded into the sky. Perfect. I called the photo Reclaiming Impact. Because that's what this was. They tried to reduce me to a helper. A servant. A family footnote. But I rewrote the story. Not out of spite. But because I had no choice but to become who they refused to see. So when people ask if I ever forgave them, I say this. Waves don't apologize for crashing into cliffs. They just shape the coast.